Welcome to What the Duck, a podcast with real experts talking about direct spin challenges and experiences. And now, here's your host, SourceDay's very own manufacturing maven, Sarah Scudder.
Thank you for joining me for What the Duck, another supply chain podcast brought to you by SourceDay. I'm your host, Sarah Scudder, and this is the podcast for people working in the direct materials part of supply chain. I'm at Sarah Scudder on LinkedIn and at S Scudder on Twitter. If you are new to the show, make sure to follow this podcast so you don't miss any of our direct material supply chain content. Today, I'm going to be joined by Muddassir Ahmed, and we're going to discuss how to determine which supplier development strategy to adopt. If you work for a manufacturer struggling to build solid relationships with your suppliers, then this episode is for you. Mud has spent 17 years working in manufacturing as a divisional supply chain leader for Eaton and Bridgestone. Welcome to the show, Mud.
I'm fine, thank you. Hope you're doing well.
Now, I know you are quite the world traveler, so where are we doing our interview from today?
Right now, I'm back to Dubai. I was in Canada, I think 2 days ago. Before that, I was in Mexico. Yeah, so right now, back to Dubai.
Okay. So I want to go back in time when you had first started your career. And you were a technical officer in, and I'm probably going to butcher this, Karachi?
Karachi, no, you did not. You did a fine job. Karachi, yeah, it's the biggest city in Pakistan, yeah.
So what is this? Where is this? And why was this initial role as this technical officer so pivotal in your career?
I think it's like any first job. So I did my engineering in textiles, right? Because that was the main industry and it's a big thing in Karachi, because you can get the job easily. And I think I was when I finished my degree, I got an interview with one of the companies and they said, yeah, come and join us. And it was a company named ICI Chemicals, it's a British Chemicals. It used to not, I think it's bought by ExxonMobil. And it was a pretty fancy environment to start a career and learn about the corporate culture, what is sales marketing. I was mainly into product development, so I learned the basics and nuances of product development and I think how important the role of supply chain is even during the product development.
Mm-hmm. So after this, so you kind of had your start in that role. You became a Six Sigma researcher at Volvo. So
Yeah.
would like to have you maybe explain to our listeners what this means. I think
Okay.
that the Six Sigma is something is not necessarily common to everyone, especially people working for small and mid-sized manufacturers.
I think Six Sigma is probably the second most famous continuous improvement methodology after Lean, right? So Sigma is define, measure, analyze, improve, control. It was invented by Motorola in early 90s. I think it got fire when General Motors adopted it, then GE adopted it, and therefore Volvo, almost automotive company. So I was doing my master's in Sweden, Chalmers University of Technology, Gothenburg. And like any Swedish company in Gothenburg, is being surrounded by Volvo cars, Ericsson, all these big brands of Dutch brands. What's the name of the bus? I forget. Saab. Yeah, Saab was there as well. So while I was working for Volvo cars, they put me through the Six Sigma training as a black belt, and actually my job was to manage only Six Sigma projects, right? So I managed about 150 different projects for various people. So I was like a coordinator. So it was fascinating because not just you're solving your own problem, you are looking at various different projects as well. Because what Six Sigma does for you is to give you a structured framework how to solve a problem. That means you have to define the problem, then measure the problem, analyze the problem, and improve and control, which is slightly different thought process if you think a conventional engineering approach. Because engineering approach is, okay, let's do and improve the product. Because I think more than half the time product is not an issue, is everything around the product is an issue.
Mm-hmm. So why was getting the Six Sigma certification so important to you? Like, what did it mean to you to
Yeah.
have this?
I think it has given me a very, very structured framework of the thinking. So whenever I see a problem, I always trying to think, okay, can we define the problem better, right? Because most of the time people dance around the problem, not actually the problem, as the famous saying goes. Uh, which is, if you know the problem, then the problem is half solved, right? So the structured approach towards defining the problem, and then you measure it, because again, a lot of people come in and they then complain about, oh, I don't have stock, everything is wrong. I say, okay, can you please quantify me this? Okay, that means, are we missing 20% of the deliveries? Are we missing 30% of the deliveries? Even the 30% deliveries, how much is the supplier issue? How much is the internal manufacturing issue? So you always train your brain to back up the problem with the quantifiable data. There is I think it's a famous saying from Deeming, right? Um, uh, we trust on God, everybody else bring the data, right? So it's one of those things, right? So if you really have to convince people that, okay, the problem you are highlighting, it's basically the data problem. Yeah.
So after your time at Volvo and getting this certification, you joined Eaton and you
Yeah.
stayed there over
12
12
years.
years, which
Yes,
is a
that's
long time in my book.
yes. Not many people do. I am an Eaton product through and through. My real actual career in supply chain kicks off in India. It's actually a slightly interesting story as well. I started my PhD. I was a full-time PhD scholar. I went to in England. You have this, they call it job centers. So you just walk in and you have a walk-in interview through his job center. So I went with him, and I was not even supposed to give an interview. I just give an interview for fun, really. I said, okay, yeah, I'll just do that. And he didn't get selected. I was, and I just told them, because I can speak multiple languages, and they need somebody who can speak Hindi and a few other languages. I said, okay, and it was a job of a buyer. That was my first job with them, right? And so I was trying to work with them in terms of, they were air freighting a lot. They were spending a lot of money in basically poor supply chain planning. So I started working with them as a buyer. Then I moved from a full-time PhD scholar to a part-time PhD scholar, company funded, and this is where I did my PhD in supply development. So I did a lot of jobs in supply chain, from buyer, demand planner, supply chain manager for twice, in fact, two different businesses. Then I did a job of a manufacturing manager, divisional supply chain manager. So managing from a very small plant, I think my last job was managing more than $500 million business on 11 different plants, traveling to China, Romania, Germany, France every month. Pretty cool job. So whatever I know in supply chain, I'm very thankful for Eaton for training me.
So, Mood, what would you say was the most challenging direct materials problem that you encountered when you were at Eaton?
I think the issue with the direct material is not all suppliers have contracts in place, right? And what generally happens is your category commodities managers, they do have contracts in place with, for example, your strategic suppliers, which is your 80% of the spend, but they are 20% of your number of suppliers. So as a classic example, if you're 400 suppliers, I'm pretty sure half of them will not have contracts. Having said that, all
Mhm.
those 200 suppliers or half of your suppliers that you don't have a contract are equally important to
Mhm.
manufacture on time, to provide the right customer service for your customers. So when you go and try to measure them against a certain set of KPIs, which could be, on time delivery, purchase lead time, MOQ, BOQ, supplier information, so on and so forth, uh, you can't measure them to the same level of scrutiny, because you just don't have a right contracts in place, right? Which is, I think, it's is an number one issue. The second issue I see is with the direct materials is there is not enough uh, let's call it statistical analysis being done with the supply. What I mean by quantifiable analysis, for example, I have actually when I teach supply chain class, right? I teach supply chain strategy. I teach masters. When I go into my first class, I ask them this question, which is a direct material problem, by the way, right? We said, okay, you have 4 suppliers to make, let's call it this mouse, 4 parts by 4 suppliers, okay? Each supplier have an on-time delivery of 95%, okay? So 4 suppliers, each supplier have a delivery of 95%. What are your chances of getting all those suppliers to supply parts at the same time? And most people give me random numbers. Actually, the answer is 4 factorial. So the chances of getting the 4 parts at the same time is less than 37%, statistically speaking, right? And therefore, managing the performance of your suppliers, having a contracts in place, having a regular reviews, measuring their performance, giving them a feedback, doing the right evaluation is actually as important as you do with your internal employees or your even internal manufacturing capacities. Because what people do is they do the contract, then they send them a PO, first initial PO, and then they forget about them. There is no regular reviews, there is no contract reviews, they don't measure performance, they don't give a feedback, right? So as the commodity managers and category leaders, it's the prime importance that they continue to do so. Not only when there's a problem, when something is short and supply is out of capacity. If you would have been talking proactively, reviewing the performance, then you know there's something about to go wrong and you can take initiative. So while I said the first, and I'm not really, if you think about how I define the problem here. In fact, you asked me the question, what is the biggest problem with the direct material supplier? The way I have explained the problem, actually, I'm not blaming the suppliers at all here. I have not even mentioned that. What I'm saying is the problem of the review systems and the lack of a structured contractual approach.
So my counter to that would be it's really, really hard to find time as a buyer to get out of the tactical mode of spending so much time in email and spreadsheets and firefighting all day. How did you set up programs that actually worked or that were successful at Eaton to better manage suppliers? Because what you're saying makes complete sense, but actually executing and putting something in place is a very different story.
Yes, and this is where the operations mindset comes in, right? Because again, our category commodity managers won't like it. What I hear is somehow they think. Again, I'm not talking about buyers, by the way. There's again always a debate between I'm a buyer, I'm operational buyer. I mean, what's the difference? Operational buyer and buyer, because somebody who sends PO is not a buyer. Of course, you are a buyer, right? But if you think about the strict roles of the category and commodity managers, they think their role is strategic and commercial. They do not want to get involved into a day-to-day operations of the supplier being late or quality issues and so on and so forth, right? Which I think is a wrong mindset. Again, I'm just sharing my experience. It may not be true for certain companies. I don't know, right? Just sharing my experience. And for a classic example of that is if you ask any category or commodity managers, let's join me in SNOP or sales and operations planning review, and they'll say, oh, why you want me to be there? What I'm supposed to do there? I've done my bit. I've got my contracts. I've got my SRM strategy. I'm good, right? But that's not true, because the reason they have to come is because they should understand what's happening in the business, what is the demand going forward, so they can work with their suppliers correctly to negotiate price better, give us leverage, or even tell suppliers that certain product line is about to go obsolete and we should not be, spending so much money on it, or should not have so much stock, so on and so forth. Now, coming back to what I've done. So it's all started from this concept called plan for every part. If you go to SCMDOJO, we in fact have a guide, which is my company, right? We have a guide which is how to manage. So plan for every part. In fact, our strategy started from the lean manufacturing background, which basically tells you what is your ABC categories, what is your made to stock, made to order part numbers. So you need to start from there. So like anything in life, you have to have your 80% of your value, volume, and frequency comes from your 20-30% of your part numbers. That generally the ball game is. Then you have to identify, okay, who are the suppliers who actually supply those parts. Again, if you extrapolate and go upstream, you will find the same thing, that even though you have 400 suppliers, 20-30% of them are actually who's contributing the most. Okay. And I introduced a concept called vendor management. No, okay, there's a difference between vendor managed and consigned inventory, right? I'm not a big fan of consigned, but I'm definitely a big fan of vendor managed inventory. Okay, sorry, other way around. Not a big fan of vendor managed inventory, but a big fan of consigned inventory, right? So consigned inventory is a good concept because if you have committed volume to of your supplier against a certain volume to supply at a certain price, then the volume we have committed is secured. And it's easy to secure if you know your planning strategies, you know what's your ABC item, what's your safety stock. So rather than having a lot of inventory of components at your place, what you say to a supplier is, actually, you're going to keep it, right? And you're going to send me the reports of how you're managing your A and B item. So we work with our procurement manager at that time. Her name is Blaine Byrne and Ross Coburn as well. I think they're connected with me. Probably they can listen or not. They were not convinced because it's a lot of negotiation for them. Think about a buyer and go and talk to a supplier saying, you know what, you supply me 200 part numbers. I want these 20 items to be in stock. They'll say, why you want to do that? Because you're asking me to invest money into a cash flow. You're asking me to put money into inventory. I don't want to do it. But then this is where you have to say, okay, you're a strategic supplier. We see you as a high value supplier. We want to do business with you. And therefore, we want you to do this. It will improve your on time delivery. It will strengthen our relationship. We will supply parts to our customer on time. Our sales will grow. Therefore, your sales will grow. So this is where the whole strategic conversation comes in with the suppliers. Okay. They did that, right? And we have a massive success because we have reduced our lead time from 3 months to 6 weeks. So suppliers, our customers are super happy because we can get parts on time, we can make it quickly, we can ship it out quickly. Therefore, our sales has gone up. At the same time, because once you shrink the lead, so everybody asked me, okay, give me how can I reduce inventory? I said, don't look into quantity, look into lead time. Because if you reduce the lead time, the inventory will reduce anyway, right? So because we shrunk the lead time, therefore the inventory in supply chain, both for our customers, for us, has gone down. Therefore, less investment on the inventory. Therefore, more improvement on cash on return. Therefore, the business has become profitable. Everybody was happy. It's all because of one simple initiative, is thinking about your 20% of the part numbers, which gives your 80% of the better delivery or stock availability. I can give you more example, but that's just one of them.
So you mentioned the importance of reducing lead times, because when you reduce lead times, it means you have less inventory, which means it'll free up cash flow so you can reinvest in the business. I'm a buyer. I'm working for a smaller mid-sized manufacturers, and I've seen my lead times double, triple, go from, a couple months to over a year. So how do I reduce my lead times? What is the strategy that you recommend, or some things that I might be able to do to actually help in that area?
Okay. So first of all, why the lead time gone up? What's the root cause? What do you think?
Well, I'll give an example. Chips are primarily produced overseas in a couple countries or limited suppliers, and the lead times have extended to over a year in some cases.
Yes, and the chips is a problem. We don't have a cars these days. Laptops are super expensive, and there is a capacity issue, right? There's a classic example where the whole world dependent on China, on few of the suppliers, one in Netherlands, and now they got a problem. So it's not for that one. It's not an easy problem. There's no short answer for that. Right now, the investments are coming in. It's going to be a longer lead time. But if you think about, let's take an example of plastics, right? Historically, all the plastic parts was moved to China, right? Because it was just so very cost effective, right? And it was they producing millions. But now what happened is if you can't get out of China, then you have to focus on nearshoring, as we the famous concept going on right now. And if you so here I say is if you want to reduce the lead time and you just one strategy is to work with the supplier, improve it, and put inventory in. But if the supplier cannot produce, they cannot produce. But what's your alternative strategies, right? Again, I'm going to give you a real example. We were in England. We have a supplier in India. They have the same issue. Can't get the production out. Lead time, labor issues, you name it. Logistics. So we got it. So then we found a supplier in Romania making same product, but they were like 15% more expensive as a cogs of the product. But if you're going to compare cost of a product of manufacturing versus cost of production in India and China, you're never going to find that your near-shoring supplier or home even manufacturing is cheaper, which is for me is the wrong way to look into it, right? The right way to look into that is to look into total cost of acquisition, right? Which is TOC. Again, we have an SCMDOJO, we have a fantastic course on total cost of acquisition. People can have a look, one of the best course. So the whole idea is you have to see all the elements of in the supply chain, right? So one is the production or the COGS, which is the cost of purchase anyway. Then how much is the transportation cost? Then if you're buying from a longer lead time supplier, then you have to put it in the warehouse. There's additional logistics cost, additional inbound, outbound cost, additional inventory carrying cost. Furthermore, there's always the cost of poor quality involved, because if you're buying from of a supplier who is on the longer lead time, it takes time to basically, if something goes wrong, the cost of poor quality is high. From a supplier who is near to you, the cost of poor quality is not that high. So if you put all this together, and we did the study, actually the supplier in Romania was 1 to 2% cheaper, right? So sometimes if you think I'm buying from a supplier, I can't reduce it. Okay, have you gone ahead and see, do you have any other alternative opportunity? And if your total cost of acquisition is even same, right, then it's still better to buy from a local and a supplier which is near to you, i.e. shorter lead time.
Mm-hmm. So how has one of the key parts of your career before you went out and started your own company, which we'll talk about in a minute, has really been around these supplier relationship management programs as it relates to reducing cost and reducing lead time. For somebody who's listening and has no supplier relationship management program in place, nothing formal, it's more something that's ad hoc and it's more kind of firefighting mode, where do you recommend that somebody gets started who has very limited resources, right? They're not going to have bandwidth to go after every supplier and spend 20, 30 hours a week, but they want to get started and kind of ease into it.
Ease into supply management? Ease into what? I missed that part. Ease into supply management.
Yeah, so for somebody who has limited resources, working on a small team, they don't have a formal supplier relationship management program in place, they want to get started. What one or two things can you recommend where somebody can kind of jump in and start putting a foundation in place to set up a program?
I think you have to start from one of the basic strategies, your crawlgic models, or your segment your suppliers, right? Who are your study suppliers? Who are your retail suppliers? Who are your replace suppliers? So clearly, it's not into a benefit of a buyer or firefighting organization who doesn't have a lot of resources, is to find a time for the even forget the replace suppliers, even the retain suppliers. It's not a good idea. We just have resources. However, it's a good start to build your relationship with your study suppliers and really get them on board as your partner. Saying, what, we work with you, we like your product, we want to grow, we need your help. How can you help us? And if you ask, I don't know, 10, 12 suppliers, I can tell you this, 2 of them will show you some generosity. And I think you should you should take advantage of those generosity, right? It's all about asking the question somehow, not just always, have a classical approach of, I'm the buyer, I am right, you should listen to me. I don't think it works in this modern day and age. This modern day and age is all about partnership. It's all about finding synergies and growth opportunities for for all of us. So in that case, if you again identify your strategic suppliers, talk to them, maybe half an hour call, guys, this is our business look like, this is our new initiatives going forward, do you think you can help us in whatever? I don't know, I don't exactly what help you can ask for, but if you can ask for help, I can tell you this, you'll get help.
Yeah, I would also add to that, Mood. I think it's really important to share data with your suppliers. Don't
Yep.
keep that so hidden and guarded. The more open and freely you're willing to communicate and give
Yep.
them metrics and insight, they're going to be able to better come back with solutions and a program that's going to help you.
I can second that 100% with an example, in fact. So when I joined, become a supply chain manager in a plant in Warwick for Eaton, it was an acquisition. It was actually SME. They bought it for a few hundred million, I think 60, 70 millions, not few hundred. And despite they have a couple of hundred to, I think, 230 suppliers, they never used to send them any forecast. And I'm thinking, how you even expect them to supply you on time? Please tell me. Also, wow, we send them PO and they ship it to us. I'm like, really? Right? I couldn't get it. So when we started the SNOP process, and given the fact your in-house manufacturing is only 50% and 50% is depending on the factored goods or a finished good which just comes in and goes out of your warehouse, you are 100% relying on your suppliers to supply on time. So not sending them forecast is a sin, actually. Not just bad, it's actually sin in my books. So my job, buyer's response, one of the important standard work was once we finish SNOP cycle, we create our forecast. As soon as we upload into our ERP for MRP to run, one of the job was to buyers to come and confirm me, yes, they have sent the forecast to their suppliers. Not just that, ask them for a feedback that have they looked into the forecast and do they see any issues going forward? Do they have enough capacities? Because if the same suppliers or same buyer come and tell me, oh, sorry, I cannot supply, 2 months later, I'm going to say, where were you 2 months ago? We sent you the forecast.
Yeah.
Did you look into it? So it's super important. Not just sending, also asking for the feedback. Do you see any issues? Can you do it?
And for strategic solutions. So maybe there's an idea that they have where, like you mentioned earlier, maybe they can stockpile some inventory in their warehouse for you instead of needing to send so much at one time. Or maybe there's an alternative product that they have that might make sense. So there's a lot you can do when you exchange that information and talk about it.
Yeah, and if alternative product which may require some, I don't know, engineering approvals, whatever, you can react on time. Yeah.
So, Mood, you spent much of your career in manufacturing and in working with direct materials procurement, both as an individual contributor and managing global teams. You made a pretty big move about a year and a half ago. You did what I call left the corporate world and became an entrepreneur. So, why did you decide to start your own company? That's pretty big.
That's big, and someone who's got a very good corporate job who pays $10,000 tax free, you got to be stupid to do that. So let me define my stupidity, right? Because you got to be crazy to do, these things. And we haven't really taken any money yet. We are bootstrap startup, and we are like 7 people, 6, 7 people right now. I just hired today, so it's 7 now. So why did it? Okay, so once I finished my PhD in 2015, July, August, I had too much time in my hand, but I have too much content in my hand as well. So I've got this always, I don't know, maybe there's a luck there in making. All my life, since I become a supply chain professional since 2005, I was collecting a lot of good information. I was just keeping into my hard drive. Don't ask me why I was doing it. So a lot of information. I didn't know anything about blogging or vlogging or whatever, digital marketing. But what I knew is I had to share this information. And I was too lazy to write research papers, because research paper takes years and months to share. I'm thinking, I can't do this. I had 2 research papers, but I didn't do more after that. So then I've come across this concept of blogging, because right now in the Google feed you see some interesting items coming, like what is SEO, what is social media marketing, or 10 tips to become a LinkedIn influencer, whatever. And I think I like this. I like this how to and tips sort of articles. So, and that suits my brain actually. So, I just don't want to read 2,000, 3,000 word of long text. Give me 7 tips of something, and I'll just want to apply 5 of them. So, what I did was I started a blog in 2016, I think, called Muddassarism, which is just my name, and which was a start sharing a script, small chunks of my thesis, because my thesis was the most original content I could have, right? So, for example, if you even search right now difference between strategic and reactive supply development, you're probably going to find my blog, which was written like more than 5 years ago, right? Like, okay, give me what is direct and indirect supply development activities. You'll find my blog. So I started writing that, and people somehow liked what I was writing. And then I moved to Dubai with the work, started working for Bridgestone, and people started inviting me into conferences. And I remember this March 2018, somebody paid me to speak to Estonia, Tallinn, and I never thought somebody gonna pay me to go and speak into conferences. And I went there. I met more people. I met somebody else who invited me into Kiev in 2018 as well to speak. So I was like, okay, that's good. So blog got recognition. Then I thought some people wants to contribute, because the blog was my name. It was not representing anything to do with supply chain. So I thought I should rebrand that to SCMDOJO, because what is SCMDOJO? So dojo is a Japanese word, means place to stay and meditate. It's come from judo karate, is like a discipline thing. So SCM is supply chain management. Dojo means, place to stay and meditate. So again, so we're working from 2018 July, I rebranded. It's the same logo, same brand. And we launched a newsletter. We launched our podcast in our COVID called The Supply Chain Show. We got 12,000 plus followers now on that. On YouTube only. I don't have any other channels on podcast. And then COVID happened. And during COVID, a couple of startups has hired me as an advisor. They start paying me. And Musk has hired me as their advisor as well. Musk, one of the biggest giants. And then I start making some money out of that. But then what happened, I think what I realized that what I do outside my job, so what I do in my job impact hundreds of people, right? But what I do in my blogging and vlogging impacts hundreds of thousands of people, right? And I saw a problem. So the problem was a lot of people wants to educate themselves and looking for a supply chain solutions, right? And it's predominantly handicapped by 2 bodies, and let me name it. It's okay. I mean, I'm not criticizing them, but they've done a great job, which is Apex or ASCM now in USA and SIPS in UK. And they are basically, if you want to do be a CSCP, you have to spend $3,500 minimum, and that's without giving to a college. Or if you want to do SIPs, you have to do more and longer. Then in the COVID days, the whole idea of the on-demand learning got progress like 10x, like any digitalization, right? And I start delivering some courses and start providing basically my consultancy services and few of my friends sitting online, right? So we are helping companies in USA, we are helping companies in Qatar, helping companies in Canada, right? And I thought, okay, so I think I've got a business, because if you are doing something for others and making money and solving their problems, and that's it. So SCMDOJO right now is essentially on-demand marketplace for knowledge and experts. That's what we do. So our experts are co-creating content for us. We already have the biggest library of courses, and we're gonna just continue to build with our experts. The idea is to work with brands as well, who are, for example, you are solving a direct material problem, very specific, which is the updating the PO, so the customer would have the right information, is a very, very specific problem you're solving. Therefore, you know the problem better than most people. Therefore, you know the solution better than most people. So if you end up creating a course on that specific problem, we would love to host it, and we would love to give it to our 50,000 subscribers, right? So this is our core value of the business, is to find experts and give them opportunity to solve problems for others, and hence our tagline, we help supply chain thrive.
Thank you for discussing how to determine which supplier development strategy to adopt with me today, Mood. Where would you like to send people to find you?
Just search SCMDOJO, SCMDOJO, or just search my name, Muddassir Ahmed, and they will find me.
If you missed anything, you can check out the show notes. You can find us by typing in What the Duck, another supply chain podcast in Google. To have the optimal search results, make sure to add another supply chain podcast at the end of your search. To ensure you don't miss a single episode, make sure to follow this podcast and subscribe to us on YouTube. I'm at Sarah Scudder on LinkedIn and at Scudder on Twitter. This brings us to the end of another episode of What the Duck, another supply chain podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Scudder, and we'll be back next week.